Would you breathe with me, please? Take it in. And let it go. One more breath. Yes. And one final breath again. Thank you. Just always what I need before I'm about ready to speak. So for years, the tradition in Centers for Spiritual Living has been to take the first month of January and go over the basics of the teaching by reviewing the first 4 chapters of the book called The Science of Mind. In fact, a lot of old-timers really enjoy that because it gives you a chance to kind of have a refresher course about what it is that we teach. It's also good for newcomers because it really allows you to get the feel and the depth of the beauty of this teaching. So the truth is, I've been doing this a few years, and I kind of got out of the habit of it several years ago. But we started these 2 new classes, which you've heard me talk about, the Foundations class, which is the real basics, and the Exploring Roots, which takes the basics and then takes you deeper into it. So it seemed like a good idea to kind of resurrect that tradition this year and give us a chance to go over the basics so that we can all kind of be on the same page. Do you agree with me? Do you think that's a good idea? Yeah. So I want to start out by saying something that's going to sound a little bit controversial. And that is that Ernest Holmes, that Lucille so beautifully spoke about today, Ernest Holmes is considered to be the person who created this teaching, and that's not exactly true. And I say that because Ernest Holmes was an avid student, and he studied religion, and he studied philosophy, and he studied science, and he studied psychology and health and all of this. And in his studies, what he realized was that there was this thread of truth that was going through all of those different modalities. So he put it all together in a book upon which his teaching is based called The Science of Mind. However, this is what he said. He said the science of mind is not a special revelation of any individual. It is rather the culmination of all revelations. We take the good wherever we find it, making it our own, insofar as we understand it. So that means that on a Sunday morning, you might hear me quote the Bible, not often, because I usually get it wrong, or the Talmud, or the Quran, or the Bhagavad Gita. You may also hear me quote Emerson, whom I'm likely to do, or Oprah, or Wayne Dyer, or Homer Simpson, or the latest movie that I've seen. Because, as Dr. Holmes said, we take the good wherever we find it, making it our own. Because truth is truth. And there isn't just one way of thinking. There isn't just one correct philosophy. For God's sake, there are 8 billion people on this earth. That means 8 billion individualized expressions of life. 8 billion ways of thinking and believing. So what we teach in this spiritual philosophy is that even though we are the 8 billion individuals, we are still part of the one. And it is all one God. And there is truth to be found everywhere. For instance, someone that I actually like to quote, like to read myself, is the Persian mystic Hafiz. You've heard of Hafiz before. And Hafiz had this really beautiful way of talking about the divine, talking about God. And there's just some of the most beautiful phrases I've ever said. I love this one. He called it friend, beloved, sweet uncle, playful one, problem solver, the individual, or excuse me, the immediate one. Aren't those sweet? I really like playful one, right? Oh my goodness. And doesn't that sound a little bit similar to some of the Ernest Holmes references to God that we use? The thing itself, spirit, life, love, intelligence, ultimate reality, infinite possibility. Isn't that beautiful? Because these ideas paint this far different idea of God than what it was that we were brought up with. And how wonderful is it that we can release the shackles of our old way of thinking about God. That we can let go of that far-off deity up there somewhere and embrace the God within. Take a deep breath. So I've got a few quotes for you from some of the teachers. Some of the great spiritual teachers. One of them is Hafiz. Know the true nature of your beloved. In his loving eyes, your every thought, word, and movement is always, always beautiful. Ernest Holmes, there is a living spirit in the center of your being. The original author of all life is in and around you. Not a God who was, but a God who is. Life is wherever you are. And from the Bible, I did get this one right. For in him we live, move, and have our being, for we are also his offspring. And finally from Emerson, every man is a doorway through which the infinite passes into the finite, through which God becomes man. Now I want to say something before I go on. There's a lot of patriarchal languaging in that, especially in the Bible phrase. And I use the phrases as is, although we don't believe in the patriarchal guy in the sky. God, I just wanted to be clear about that. So, last week, we had a discussion about the first chapter of our book, which was called The Thing Itself. And we talked about this idea that God manifests itself as both love and law. Love and law. And we agreed that the love portion of God, that's pretty easy to understand, right? I mean, we feel love, we experience love, so it's pretty easy to recognize that love is one of the divine aspects, right? The law part is a little bit more complicated to understand. It's actually not complicated, but we think that it is. So in the second chapter of the book, which is what we're going to cover today, the second chapter is the way it works. We're going to get more into the mechanics of the teaching. We're going to get more into how the law actually works. So simply put, the law, otherwise known as the law of cause and effect, in case you're wondering which law I'm talking about, the law is that aspect of the universe that responds to our thoughts and delivers to us what we believe. However, the tricky part about that is that the law doesn't choose what it's going to deliver. It doesn't edit what it is that we say that we want, or it doesn't edit our thoughts about it. It can't change its mind. It responds to what we are thinking and believing, period. Think about that. Think about that. Because to some people, that's not such great news. Sometimes we manifest not so great things. Okay, maybe just me, but sometimes we do. And then we've manifested this thing that we don't want, and we want God to fix it. But God cannot fix it because that would be violating the law that works alike for everyone. And how the law works is it responds to our thoughts and our beliefs. So for the law to work, it has to work all the time equally for everyone. It has to be impartial. Because a loving deity cannot play favorites if it is a loving deity. Are you with me so far? Yeah. So one of the best analogies, those of you who are in foundations class, you will learn this analogy, is to liken the law to the soil. Now what we say is that a gardener plants a seed into the soil, and the soil, working in partnership, in conjunction with the seed, produces what's planted, right? Yes? Okay. And like the law, the soil is impartial. The soil doesn't choose. The soil doesn't say, oh no, I don't want to produce rutabaga. I really want to produce tomatoes. It doesn't do that. You plant rutabaga, you get rutabaga. You plant tomatoes, you're going to get tomatoes. So, as the gardener in my mind, I also plant a thought, or a seed, or a belief in the soil of my mind. And that soil gives to me what I planted. Even when I have planted unconsciously something that I don't want. So the law does not choose what it produces. I choose what I plant. And sometimes I plant unconsciously. Sometimes I plant thoughtlessly. And that's the rub, isn't it? Yeah? Because a lot of times we're not even aware of what it is that we're thinking. We're not paying attention to what we are letting into our thoughts. And so we're not paying attention to the seeds that we are planting in the soil of our minds. And the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, the law works whether or not we know it. Ignorance is no excuse. I'm not saying ignorance like an insult. Ignorance just means you don't know. You don't know that the law works, it's still going to work. It still works. So since we are always thinking, the law is always responding with or without our conscious knowledge or our participation. But here's the good news. You were waiting for the good news, weren't you? That once we start to understand the way it works, we are no longer ignorant. Once we start to pay attention, we begin to take control of what we are thinking, of what we are planting. In our teaching, we use the word consciousness a lot, conscious and consciousness. And it simply means awareness or awakeness. I love this teaching story. Somebody once said to the Buddha, tell me, are you a god? And the Buddha said, no, I'm not a god. And they said, are you an angel? And the Buddha said, no, I'm not an angel. The person said, well, then what are you? And the Buddha said, I'm awake. So we're starting to wake up. We're starting to become aware of our thoughts. And when we start to become aware of our thoughts, then we start making different choices, different thoughts. We begin to stand guard at the portals of our mind. So that those things that we don't want to have manifest, we no longer entertain them. We begin to make conscious, on purpose choices because we're not asleep anymore. And then, here's the really good news, is that once we start to wake up, we realize that there really is this great, beautiful, marvelous, magnificent, abundant, colorful world, and it is simply awaiting our discovery of it. It is simply awaiting for us to wake up and claim it for ourselves. So, there was a movie that came out in the 90s, before some of you were born, I realize that. I was a brand new puppy minister back then. No comments from the peanut gallery. So this movie was called Pleasantville, and it starred Tobey Maguire and Reese Witherspoon. Do you guys remember this movie? Yeah. I'm not going to go into a lot of the background about it, but basically the two main characters, Tobey Maguire and Reese Witherspoon, are modern-day teenagers living a modern-day life. And one day, they magically get transported back into the black and white world of a 50s sitcom, like Father Knows Best or Leave It to Beaver, something like that. And the town that they're transported back to is called Pleasantville. And everything in it is black and white. Everything. And because it's based on a TV show, which had a lot of reruns, the same events keep happening over and over again. So everyone in Pleasantville is pleasant. But there's no spontaneity, there's no creativity, there's no art, and there's no color. The books have no writing in them, so when they open up the books, they just have blank pages. The music is tame. It is literally a black and white world. So Reese Witherspoon's character is horrified that she has somehow landed in this 50s sitcom, because she was pretty wild in her former life, and Pleasantville is anything but wild. So what she does is to spice things up, she hooks up with the star basketball player and takes him up to Lover's Lane and introduces him, introduces him to some of the more spontaneous aspects of life. And after their tete-a-tete, he drops her off, and he's like dazed and confused because he has never had an experience like this. It was an out-of-character activity, right? And he starts to drive away from her house. I have a picture of it. And in this total black and white scenery, he sees one beautiful red rose. Well, that acts as a catalyst for the entire town. And pretty soon, color starts popping up all over the town because people are starting to wake up to their true selves because they have been exposed to new ideas, so their consciousness has expanded. One of the coolest scenes in it is the kids have these books like Shakespeare and Mark Twain, and they've got blank pages, and as they start to wake up, they open up the books and the writing appears. It's so cool. It's not on Netflix. I looked because I was going to tell you guys all about it. So what happens is, as people start to wake up, their world starts opening up to possibilities that they'd never had before. But of course, this is threatening to the other people in the town folks who have not had an awakening. Does this sound at all familiar to you? Not just the movie, the experience. As you start to wake up, it starts to be threatening to the people that you know. They think it's evil, they think it's blasphemous, they want the whole thing to stop. But it can't. Because once awakening starts, there's no going back. By the end of the movie, the whole thing now is in color, and the people are living meaningful, creative, interesting, spontaneous lives. And so the message of this great movie, it really is a grand movie if you can find it, is that once we wake up, once we begin to understand that we are part of this great, colorful, wonderful world and have these limitless opportunities, we can start to consciously plant the seeds of what it is that we want. And the law works for us automatically. Can I get an amen to that? Amen. How cool is that? However, there is one little caveat I need to give you, and it's a biggie. And that caveat is that this universal law that I'm talking about, this impartial, beautiful, powerful, creative law, limitless in its nature, can only do for you what it can do through you. It cannot give you more than you are willing to accept. This is another quote from Holmes. Our belief sets the limit to our demonstration of a principle which of itself is without limit. It is ready to fill everything because it is infinite. It is not a question of its willingness, nor of its ability. It is entirely a question of our own receptivity. I know you know what I'm talking about. We say we want to live these limitless, beautiful, abundant, loving, happy lives. But in reality, we either don't really believe it's possible, or we don't believe that we are deserving. And so because we're working with a law that is always impartial, it responds to our belief that we are not deserving or that it's not possible. And our life experience becomes limited. For instance, I know that there are some of us, scratch that, there are some people here who wanted to take the foundations class. It called to you. We told you there was financial assistance. Financial assistance that was offered by the board, free and clear, no strings attached. And the reason why that is that they want to bring our mission statement to life by making accessible a way of living and thinking that reveals spiritual magnificence. So here it is. And I know there are some of you who heard that offer and thought, oh, they don't mean me, or it's too good to be true. But we did mean you. And it is as good as it sounded. But again, the law cannot give you more than you are able to accept. So part of our work, all of our work, is to up-level our ability to believe. Up-level our ability to accept, to be receptive to more. To increase the size of our vessel, if you will, our container, our receptacle, to make room for more. More prosperity, more love, more happiness, more health, more joy, more happiness, whatever. So I'm going to close now with one of my favorite things in the world. It's a poem by Ernest Holmes. And I've used it before because it's just so marvelous. And it is the essence of what it is that I'm talking about, that everything is available to us. So what I invite you to do is, and I'm going to put it up here on the screen, so you can either look at it that way or you can close your eyes while I read it. But I would like you to imagine that the beloved uncle, the playful one, the all and everything, is saying this to you. Peace be unto thee, stranger. Enter and be not afraid. I have left the gate open, and thou art welcome to my home. There is room in my house for all. I have swept the hearth and lighted the fire. The room is warm and cheerful, and you will find comfort and rest within. The table is laid, and all the fruits of life are spread before thee. The wine is here also. It sparkles in the light. I have set a chair for you where the sunbeams dance through the shade. Sit and rest and refresh your soul. Eat of the fruit and drink of the wine. All is yours, and you are welcome. All is yours, and you are welcome. So next week we continue with our series. Let me just go through my mind, the thing itself, the way it works, what it does. Next week is what it does. So we'll be exploring that. The week after that is how to use it. So thank you for being here, and so it is.